Hey, everybody. Welcome to. Oh, you know what? I have to do a playlist too. Um, just give me a second here. Well, I can't edit it. Yes, I can. Playlist. Playlist. New playlist. New playlist. On the way home. Okay. Create. And there we go. Done. Save. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Hey, Game Queen. How's it going? I was doing dishes and scrubbing pans, so I got it all over myself. I had to change my shirt. On the way home, the diary of a trip from South Dakota to Mansfield, Missouri. Hey, Kathy. We're all familiar with that picture. And that's Rose. And everybody wants me to read the Rose books, but I don't like Rose. I've read a lot about her. I don't like her. And you can tell her whole attitude is right there in her face. Hey, Dave, how's it going? All right, here we go. Number 1. For 7 years, there had been too little rain. The prairies were dust. Day after day, summer after summer, the scorching winds blew the dust and the sun was brassy in a yellow sky. Crop after crop failed. Again and again, the barren land must be mortgaged for taxes and food and next year's seed. The agony of hope. And now listen, folks, when I say he's one to mortgage everything, in the end, maybe Pa Ingalls didn't, but he was robbing Peter to pay Paul through most of Laura's life. So, okay. Again and again, the barren land must be mortgaged for taxes and food and next year's seed. The agony of hope ended when there was no harvest and no more credit, no money to pay interest and taxes, and the banker took the land. Then the bank failed. In the 7th year, a mysterious catastrophe was worldwide. All banks failed. From coast to coast, the factories shut down and businesses ceased. This was the panic. It was not a depression. The year was 1893, when no one heard of depressions. Everyone knew about panics. There had been panics in 1797, 1820, 1835, 1857, and 1873. A panic was nothing new to Grandpa. He had seen them before. This one was no worse than usual, he said, and nothing like as bad as the wartime. Now we were all safe in our beds. Nobody was rampaging but Coxey's armies. All the way from California, Coxey's armies of unemployed were seizing the railroad trains, jam-packing the cars, and running them full speed, open throttle, hell for leather towards Washington. They came roaring into towns, yelling, "Justice for the working man," and stopped and swarmed out, demanding plenty to eat and 3 days' rations to take with them, or they'd burn the town. People gave them everything to get rid of them. In all the cities, I've never heard of anything like this. Have you? In all the cities, federal troops were guarding the government buildings. I was 7 years old and in the second reader at school, but I had read the third reader and the fourth, and Robinson Crusoe and Gulliver's Travels. This is Rose talking. The Chicago Inter-Ocean came every week, and after grown-ups had read it, I did. I did not understand all of it, but I read it. It was said that east of the Mississippi, there were no trains on railroad tracks. The dispatchers had dispatched every train to the faraway east to keep them safe from Coxey's armies. So now the armies were disbanded and walking on foot towards Washington, robbing and raiding and stealing and begging for food as they went. For a long time, I had been living with Grandpa and Grandma and the aunts in Smet because nobody knew what would become of my father and mother. Only God knew. They had she couldn't pronounce diphtheria. They had diphtheria, a hard word and dreadful. I did not know what it was exactly, only that it was big and black, and it meant that I might never see my father and mother again. Then my father, man-like, would not listen. See, I didn't like Rose at all. Would not listen to reason and stay in bed. Grandma also almost scolded about that to the aunts. Bound and determined to get back out and take care of the stock he was, and for working too hard, too soon, he was stricken. Now he would be bedridden all his days, and what would Laura do with me on her hands besides? But when I saw my father again, he was walking slowly. He limped through the rest of his 90 years and was never as strong as he had been. We lived then in our own house in Smet, away from Main Street, where only a footpath went through the short brown grasses. It was a big rented house and empty. Upstairs and down, it was dark and full of stealthy little sounds at night. But then the lamp was lighted in the kitchen where we lived. Our cook stove and table and chairs were there. The bed was in an empty room, and at bedtime my trundle bed was brought into the warmth from the cook stove. We were camping, my mother said. Wasn't it fun? I knew she wanted me to say yes, so I did. To me, everything was simply what it was. I was going to school while my father and mother worked. Reading, writing, spelling, arithmetic, penmanship filled my days almost unbearably happy with achievements, satisfying Miss Bauer's strictest standards. Procrastination is the thief of time, I wrote 20 times in my penmanship book without error or blot. And evil communications corrupt good manners. And sweet are the rules of adversity, or sweet are the uses of adversity. Every T and D exactly twice as tall as a vowel, and every I exactly 3 times as tall, every I exactly 3 times as tall, every T crossed, every I dotted. All the way home down the long boardwalk in late afternoons, we diligent scholars warmly remembered our adored Miss Barrow's grave. Well done. Her grave, well done. And often as we sang a rollicking song, it was the song of those days heard more often than Ta-ra-ra-boom-de-ay. My Aunt Grace, a jolly big girl, often sang it. Sometimes my mother did. And nearly all the time you could hear some man or boy whistling it. Oh, Dakota land, sweet Dakota land, as on thy burning soil I stand, and look away across the plains, I wonder why it never rains. Till Gabriel blows his trumpet sound and says the rain has gone around. We don't live here, we only stay, 'cause we're too poor to get away. My mother did not have to go out to work. She was married. My father was the provider. He got a day's work here and there. He could drive a team, he could carpenter or paint or spell a storekeeper at dinner time. And once he was on jury duty downtown. My mother and I slept at Grandma's then. Every night, the jury was kept under lock and key, and my father could not come home. But he got his keep and $2 a day for 5 straight weeks, and he brought back all that money. My mother worked to save. She sewed at the dressmakers from 6 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day but Sunday, and then came home to get supper. I had peeled the potatoes thin and set the table. I was not allowed to touch the stove. One day my mother made 60 good firm buttonholes in 1 hour. 1 hour, 60 minutes. Nobody else could work so well, so fast. And every day, 6 days a week, she earned $1. We were going to the land of the big red apple when we had enough money. Someone named Mr. Sherwin had gone there and seen it. So the pictures that he sent back were true. Pictures of huge red apples and rows of much smaller trees much smaller trees and buildings of confusingly named Mansfield. They were not a man's field, and the print under them said they were the gem city of the Ozarks. Around and under these pictures on beautiful shiny paper, I read that the gem city of the Ozarks was in the land of the big red apple in Missouri. Now I knew 3 Miss States: Mississippi, Wisconsin, and Missouri. Paul said scornfully that it wasn't Wisconsin, that it was Wisconsin, but Wis didn't make sense to me. Paul and George Cooler were coming with us to the land of the big red apple. Paul was the oldest, George was next. I was only the youngest, but they had to let me boss because I was a girl. We had always known each other. Their father had 2 big teams and 2 big covered wagons, and Paul would be allowed to drive one of them. He said his father said he could. I did not want to believe this, but I knew that Paul would never lie. He was a big boy, too, going on 10 years old. My mother had saved $100 to take to the land of the big red apple. All those dollars were one piece of paper named $100 bill. She hid in her writing desk a fascinating wooden box which my father had made and polished so shiny smooth that stroking it was rapture. It opened on little brass hinges to lie spread flat and be a slanting green felt surface to write on. At the top was a darling wooden tray to hold my mother's pearl-handled pen, and beside it was an inkwell, and the green felt was on a lid that lifted up on tinier hinges to reveal the place for writing paper underneath it. I was allowed to see and touch the desk only when my mother opened it. The $100 bill was a secret. My mother locked it in the desk. Mr. and Mrs. Cooley knew, perhaps Paul and George did, but we must not talk about it. I must never, never speak one word about that $100 bill, not to anyone. Never, no matter no matter what happened. In the shade of the big empty house, my father painted our covered wagon. It was really better than a covered wagon. It had been a 2-seated hack, though now it only had the front seat. Here's a sewing box made of cigar boxes by Almanzo for a first anniversary gift for Laura. It came with us to the hack in Mansfield. It's a sewing box. My father painted it shiny black. He made a flap for the top for it of black oilcloth and put straight curtains of the black oilcloth on both sides and the back. Each curtain could be rolled up when he pulled a rope. Behind the seat, he fitted the bed springs, and my mother made up the bed on them. At night, she would make up my bed on the floor in front of the seat. She baked 2 dozen hardtack for the journey. They were as large as a plate, flat and hard. Being so hard and dry, they would not spoil as bread would. It was hardtack to gnaw, but it tasted almost like a cracker. We were going to make haste, driving every day to reach the land of the big red apple and get settled before winter. We could not stop to look for work. but we would need more food on the way, so my father bought a box of asbestos fire mats to trade or to sell for 10 cents apiece. Fire mats were a new thing, unheard of. They looked like round pieces of gray-white pasteboard edged with a narrow strip of tin. Nobody could believe that they would not burn till my father proved it. He would urge doubters to make a hot fire, hotter and hotter, and then he laid one of those mats right into the flames. It would glow red and the watchers would jeer, but that mat came out unharmed. Put one of those fire mats under a pot, my father would say, and the pot could boil bone dry, and not a potato in it would be so much as scorched. Every woman alive needed one of those mats. You could also put them under your wood stove to stop the floor from burning. Everything that we were taking all the way was packed under the bed springs first. Next, the things we would be using. The table, the chairs with folding legs, the sheet iron camp stove that Father had made. They sell them on Temu now. The hammock that blind Aunt Mary had netted and given to us as a parting present. The writing desk, well wrapped. Plates, cups, frying pan, coffee pot, wash basin, water pail, picket ropes, pegs, the hardtack in its box. My father tied down the black curtain outside. Outside it, he fastened the hen coop, while the hens fluttered and squawked inside the wire netting. But they would soon be used to traveling. In the dawn, the next morning, we said goodbye to Grandpa and Grandma, to the aunts, Mary, Carrie, and Grace, to all who all stood around to watch us go, though Aunt Mary's beautiful blue eyes would not see us. The mares were hitched to the hack. Their colts, Little Pet and Prince, would follow them. The coolies' covered wagons had gone ahead, and Paul was driving the second one. I climbed up over the wagon wheel and onto the seat by myself. My mother sat beside me. Beside her, my father tightened the lines. Everyone said, "Goodbye, goodbye." "Don't forget to write." "I won't, I will. You be sure to. Goodbye." And we drove away. Away from Grandma's house with its rag carpets and rocking chair, the hymn books on the organ, my very own footstool away from the chalky schoolroom where angelic Miss Barrows taught kindergarten, primer, first and second readers. Away from the summer sidewalks where grasshoppers hopped in the dry grass and the silver-lined poplar leaves rattled overhead. Away from the gaunt, gray, empty house. From Mrs. Sherwood and her sister, who sometimes on sweltering afternoons asked me to fetch 10 cents worth of ice cream from the faraway ice cream parlor and shared it with me, away from Smet to the land of the big red apple. This is Pa and Ma Engel's house in Smet. My mother made daily notes of our journey in a little 5-cent memorandum book, writing with pencil on both sides of the pages, of course. Nobody then wasted paper. This is her record. Part 1 of On the Way Home. Thank you for joining me on the way home, and please feel free to, I'll see you again soon. Today is Friday, so it probably won't be until Monday or Sunday we get another chapter. Thank you all. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you soon. Mwah!